Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome back to Canadian Cutting Edge. How's your summer been? How's it been going? Been having some good times going out, doing stuff outside and things? My summer, it's okay. It's not great, but not bad. Mostly because, my health issues continue. I think the stress on my body when I got off of those painkillers has really done a number on me, worse than I thought it was going to be. So most of my mornings, just are terrible. I get about 4 or 5, sometimes 6 or 7 hours, in the afternoon and evening where I'm feeling fairly decent. So that's good. And those hours seem to be stretching ever so slowly. They keep getting a little bit better. So, hey, life is getting better. Life is good. Keep moving forward. I know a lot of you guys are also facing your own personal struggles of a variety of kinds. Keep on chugging on. I encourage you. Today we're taking a look at this. This is, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Real Steel Huginn. Is that how it's pronounced? Huginn? I don't watch other reviewers, and I didn't even try to find Ivan Braginets, he's the designer of this, his channel to see what he said this is called. I'm assuming it's pronounced Huginn or Huginn, probably Huginn, I don't know. We'll figure that out as time passes. Somebody's probably going to tell me in the comments below how other people are pronouncing it. Anyhow, this is a fairly good size, a little bit largest on the largest side. Crossbar lock, yeah, aka Axis lock, although Axis is sort of the branded name by Benchmade. It's that Axis crossbar lock style VG10 blade. Most of the versions are in G10, but you can also get this thing in micarta. And if you want to know the prices and the best places I found it, I'll try to do that at the end of the video. So if you really need to skip forward, go there. So if you're interested in a knife like this, VG10, G10 micarta, and Axis lock, stick around. We're going to be talking about it the whole video long. Okay, boys and girls, drink it in. That's the best this blade is going to look in the whole video, because it's a satin finish. And I'm Mr. Greasy Fingers. Yeah, I got pretty oily skin, and so I'm going to get fingerprints all over this thing very, very soon. Now, those dark spots you see on the blade, right there, every 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters or so, that's where whatever abrasive they're using to sharpen this with cut just a tiny bit deeper, and that's why there's a little bit of ink left on there, because I use a Sharpie system. I got a video about how I measure grind angles, because I don't have a goniometer, or however you say that, one of those laser angle finders, so I use my sharpening rig to figure out the grind angle. You can see that video right up here. And so a little bit of that ink is left over, so even when I wipe off the ink later on, I even stropped it a tiny bit to try to wipe off a little bit more. Some of it gets left because there's a little, indentation, the opposite of a ridge, a little trench. Trenches are deeper right in those spots. And so that's what that looks like. What do we got? We got a drop point blade with a swedge. That's about a little more than a third of the knife has got that swedge. So it's got sort of that spear point kind of tip to it. A lot of belly back here, straight section, high flat grind, bit of a fuller up here, chamfer on the edges there, so it's not a flat top. Lots of jimping. I like the jimping on this thing. The jimping's really nice. It starts back here on the handle, comes out a pretty good distance, so even when you stick your thumb out a long ways, at least my thumb, half of it still has some jimping on it, so I like the jimping on this thing quite a lot. Here's the crossbar lock, and pretty nice. With your grip, the cutting edge comes pretty close to the finger, and I like that too. We've got thumb stud for deployment, or you can use the crossbar. So if you use a crossbar, you just pull it back a little bit and fling it shut. I don't want to do it. If I do it fast, you can't even see it really on camera, right? It just happens so quick. But see, you can use the crossbar to deploy the blade or close the blade. Of course, you can use a thumb stud to close the blade as well. And there you go. And lockup is really good. There's no blade play. Side to side, up and down, really solid lockup. Good crossbar lock system. We've got ball bearings in here. I'll show you those a little bit later when I do the teardown. Liners are really nice. The liners are out a little bit. The G10 is inset just a little bit. We've got chamfering on the edge of the liners. There's nothing sharp about these liners. Very, very comfortable. The shape is really comfortable in hand, at least my hand. My hands are just barely itty bitty into the extra large range. So there you go. Maybe you can figure out what size your hands are, and I'll go through all the measurements a little bit later on. So that's really good. One cool thing about this knife that most knives don't have, we've got jimping on the liners right up here. So your index finger gets extra grip. You know, your thumb and your index finger, you get a really solid grip, especially for when you're doing the old pokey. That's really nice to have. But there's also jimping back here. Focus up here. There you go. And that's really good for like a reverse grip. So your thumb gets on that jimping. So that's really good. Even a reverse pull grip, you know, if you wrap your thumb around, it helps a little bit, much more on a standard sort of reverse fighting grip. That jimping helps out a bit. We've got a little bit of a wedge, sweat wedge here cut into the handle scale. Other than that, it's flat slab, good texture on it. That is so that you can more easily get your thumb onto the thumb stud. The thumb studs, at first glance, if you just look at the picture, seems very close to the liners and stuff. How do you get your finger behind that? Well, that's what that's for. And it's really easy actually to get your finger behind that thumb, and it just works really well. It's a little harder with the left hand because I can't grip the pocket clip unless I moved it over to the other side. Then I would be a little more efficient with my hand to open and close it, but you can do that. There's the focus up here now. Yeah, my camera focuses slow, but when it focuses, it looks nice. So we've got a little screw in there. I think that's a T6. Isn't that a T6? Yeah, it's a T6. Very little play in that screw, just a little bit so the head sinks in there. So it's a button screw T6. You can loosen it up and move it around to the other side. Now the thing is, before I talk more about the pocket clip, one thing I dislike about this knife, and this is a small thing, it's not a really big deal, but since this is a T6 and you've got to take the pocket clip off to take the knife apart, unless your pocket clip's on the left-hand side and you haven't turned these screws around. Because these got nice smooth finish. They look nice and pretty on this side. But, you need your flat screw right in there, and you can't get the screwdriver into this back one unless you take the pocket clip off. Is that a big deal? No, it's not a big deal at all. Something to think about, though. Let's take a look at the other thing that I don't like about this pocket clip. If you look at it this way, that pocket clip is very flat, very close to the G10 here, and I found sometimes when I was carrying it, just like that, it would catch on the inside a little bit, but then just. Now I've done nothing to this yet because I wanted to show you what it looked like from the factory. Just catches on there. It should be pretty easy to bend that up. That is a very minor fail from the factory, not hard to fix at home. So it's still a pass because I really like this design of the pocket clip. They just didn't execute it perfectly. Now that's the biggest con about this knife. Most of the other things I really like. The balance, that's okay. That's not bad. I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit further forward. Later on when I take it apart, I'll tell you how to make it go forward a little bit more. But smooth action, really, really like that. It's got smooth action. It's not heavy. This is a light knife. Just the tiniest hair over 3.5 ounces. So, hey, that's not bad for a big knife. And I'll go through all the measurements a little bit later. Grip's nice, comfortable, feels good, good blade shape. Very useful for cutting. It's a little thick behind the grind. It's right at 20 thou, and I wish it was a little bit thinner at the edge. VG10 could handle it being a little bit thinner. Blade shape is decent for poking, decent for slicing and cutting. Doesn't super excel at any of those things. Maybe that's because how it was sharpened. Not sure. I'll talk about that in a minute when I go through all the measurements. But it's pretty good. I like the weight. I like the comfort. I like the ease of using it. It feels good in the hand. And that smooth action. Just before we take it apart, let's look at the alignment right down the middle. Very, very nice. Right down the middle. So taking the pocket clip off, and hopefully you can see, and there you can see that It's flat on both sides right there, so the pocket clip definitely goes both ways, no problem. We've got, you can see the D-shaped pivot pin right there, and there's a D shape, I think, in that pin right there. Let's take this off. Yes, clearly there is. And there you go. So look at all that skeletonizing in there. And there's your crossbar, there's your spring. They've got 3 pins that go through the backspacer here, plus this screw. Now, one thing you could do to move the balance point a little bit, get rid of one of these pins and cut off the G10 right about there. You know, cut off the G10 right there. Take that bit off. That's going to be pretty light. It's not going to move your balance point very far, but like I said, you can move your balance point that way. I wouldn't get rid of this. So the G10 should be forward of that pin. This pin here is not a G10 pin. That's the lanyard pin. And the lanyard pin's done really, really nicely. I like it a lot. They even, hopefully I can get a close-up picture of this, they even rounded the trench for your cordage to follow. It's not just, you know, flat ground like most are. So it helps your paracord or whatever flow around that pin. Tiny little thing, which is a really nice touch. Costs a little bit extra for them to do that, but it's a really nice touch for you. So that's kind of nice. I did take it not completely apart, but mostly to show you it does not have ball bearings. How did it get so smooth? Well, washers have been able to be smooth, super smooth for years and years, decades and decades and decades, if you do them right. So this is kind of a, I believe it's a kind of Teflon in a plastic, and phosphor bronze, a very thin little phosphor bronze washer. Because turn that to the side, just about disappears. On each side, you've got both of these on each side stacked up in there like that. I got to re-lube this and put it back together again. That's how simply it's made. The measurements. The weight of this knife, 101 grams, 3.56 ounces, like I was saying earlier. Sharpness from the factory, 175 best. It could have been better, and I'll tell you why in a second. The cutting edge length and the blade length are the same, so the tip to the closest spot on the handle and the tip to the heel in straight lines, 92.2 millimeters, 3.63 inches. The thickness of the blade stock at the flat areas, that is 3.05 millimeters, 0.12 of an inch, so that's quite good. The tiniest hair under, well, 50 thou under 1/8 of an inch, not bad. Blade depth this way is widest right here where the swedge ends. That's the widest point of the blade this way, 25.1 millimeters, 0.989 of an inch. Thickness behind the grind, already told you, 0.51 millimeters, 20 thousandths of an inch on average along the blade. The grind angles. The angles change along the length. The average grind angle along this guy is 18.3 degrees. This side is 19.6 degrees. Started at 18 degrees near the heel, went to 21.2 degrees at the tip. That's 3.2 degrees of change, but still the angles aren't bad. This side started at 17.7 degrees here, went to 18.9 degrees up here. That's 1.2 degrees of change. Not bad. The thing that held back the sharpness on this, though, is there's a tiny micro bevel along there. The other thing that held it back sometimes in some of my cutting was from the factory, right where my pinky fingernail is, there was a tiny little rolled edge. It looked like something round impacted that. Maybe something like a screwdriver or something impacted that edge a tiny bit and rolled it. It was like that from the factory. So that's not terrible. It's really tiny. When I sharpen this for the first time myself, I'll probably do it 18 degrees per side, the whole thing, and that little rolled edge will come off just fine. So that's pretty good. More measurements. The handle length. So this is the liner that sticks out just a little bit on either end. The length is 118.1 millimeters, 4.65 inches. The grip area, it's kind of variable because where do you exactly count it on these sort of rounded areas? It's roughly 10 centimeters or 4 inches of grip. It's big without being too big, you know what I mean? It's a nice handle. When the knife is closed, the widest point going into your pocket is right here, 30.2 millimeters, 1.19 inches, so that's pretty small. And the full length, rounded to the nearest millimeter, 210 millimeters, 8.27 inches. So yeah, it's a pretty good sized knife. I think I showed you the balance. Yeah, I did show you the balance point before. So what haven't I spoken about yet? Well, these thumb studs, I haven't mentioned those yet. I really like these thumb studs. They are good looking thumb studs. Hopefully you can see that. If you're looking at this on a monitor, on a TV, that's great. If you're watching this on a mobile device, you might not be able to see how nice that is. There's a T6 hole on either side, so if you want to swap these out, you'd be able to take these off without too much trouble. Badging, fairly small. You know, there's the real steel Ivan D. Braginets design, VG10 right there, Ivan's logo right there. Fuller's nice. It's just a beautiful little knife. I like the little touches of, you know, putting in a flat screw head there, you know, with the two little extra little ovals in there. It looks nice. Pocket clip. Yeah, it looks nice, but you have to do a tiny bit of bending. It's a nice knife. The blade, functional. It's a strong, good VG10. Blade design, very good. I bought mine directly from realsteelshop.com before, you know, sort of a pre-release sale. It was a total retail price. I didn't get any special pricing. I bought it. Anybody else could have bought it at the same pricing I did. I think it was $69.99, $70 for this. But right now, Real Steel Shop is selling this for $119 in all the standard variations. That's American dollars. That's a little bit high. Unfortunately for Canadians, there's no Canadian store that I could find that sells this directly. And remember, if you go to Hero Outdoors, their website, they don't have their knives in Canada. They get them drop shipped in, which means they got to get past CBSA. And CBSA, if they inspect this, very good chance they're going to call this a gravity knife. So unfortunately, maybe this isn't a good choice for Canadians. Unless you do what I do. I have my knives taken apart in Nebraska and the blades and handles shipped to me separately. I know, not everybody can do that. And please don't ask me to do that for you, because I've got, you know, family member of mine doing it for free for me, and I'm not going to ask him to do that for other people. The price of this, other places, White Mountain Knives, they've got the best price I could find for an exclusive. They've got a brown linen micarta version for $79.99. Like I said, that's $71.99. That's a better price than these G10 versions. They're $95.20. Take off 10% with code CC. That's $85.86. That's the best price in most places. But like I said, Blade HQ has got the red with the black oxide blade. If you like that color scheme, $79.95. So go there instead for the red one with the black blade. So I'll leave some links down below, like I said. Hopefully I didn't yap on too long on the prices. What's my summary? I like this knife. It's a little bit pricey. It's a little bit beyond what most of the knives I review are, but it's a little bit more of a knife than most of the knives I review as well. Some of my viewers are into pricier knives, so occasionally I spend a little bit more. But like I said, I paid, I think, $69.99 for this when I bought it. And I had a $20 referral coupon code, so I saved even more than that off this. So not bad for me to get this. Unfortunately, that price is past. But that's how it goes. It's a good knife. Go back and watch the video again if you don't remember the good things I said about it. Thank you to my supporters. Thank you for sending me, you know, either through Patreon or YouTube membership money every single month. It really does mean a lot to me, and it really does help keep my channel afloat, even during this slow time. Thank you, thank you. And remember, friends, always, all of ya, remember, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.